Hello everyone. So today we discuss the anatomy of the urinary system, right? So let's start. So as you can see here, the urinary system. So these are the two kidney, right? One is the left kidney and another is the right kidney. Okay, and this is two ureters, right? And then this one is the urinary bladder, and this is the urethra, right? So what is the functions of kidneys, right? So first is the filters blood plasma and eliminates waste and returns useful chemicals to the blood, right? The second is regulate blood volume and pressure, electrolyte and balance, right? Then secrete erythropoietin which helps in production of RBC, right? So these are the functions, right? So the filters the blood plasma, it eliminates the waste product, okay, and it regulate the blood volume and pressure and some electrolyte balance, okay, it balance the electrolyte balance and secrete the erythropoietin, okay. And what is the uses of erythropoietin? It helps in production of the RBC, right? Then the next is ureters, okay, it transports the urine. And if I talk about the bladder, it store urine which is later drained from the body through the ureter, right? So as you can see here, so ureters is the transports urine, right? And the bladder is store urine, it store the urine which is later drained from the body through the urethra, it pass out through the urethra, right? Next we talk about the anatomy of the kidney. As you can see here, the kidney is bean shaped, right? And its weight is on an average 150 gram, right? And it is reddish brown in color, right? And situated in between the lobes of last thoracic and third lumbar vertebra, okay, यानी कि 12, okay, T12 and L3 vertebra, right? So here you can see it is retroperitoneal in position, okay. So kidney here in retroperitoneal position, and it's situated, as I already said, that it's situated between the last thoracic and third lumbar vertebra, okay. So here you can see the T12 and L3 यानी कि third lumbar vertebra, and it is here the bean shaped, kidney shape is bean shaped. Then receives some protection from the lower lip, okay, and here it receives the some protection from lower ribs, right? Okay. Then next, the right kidney is pushed slightly by the liver lower than the left, okay. So the right kidney is pushed slightly by the liver, then left kidney, right, and slightly lower, okay. Then the medial surface is concave and has a cleft called as hilum. As you can see here, this part, this one is the hilum, okay, and this is the anterior surface of the right kidney, okay. This is the superior pole and this is the inferior pole, okay. And you can see this is the ureter, right? And this is the renal pelvis, this is renal vein, okay. So one by one we will discuss later, right? Then next, just wait a second. Okay, next see, then the anatomy of the kidney. So the ureter, or then the ureter, renal blood vessels and nerves enter into the hilum, okay. So all the ureters, renal blood vessels and nerve enter through the hilum. As you can see here, that the in hilum part here, the renal vein, renal artery, okay, renal pelvis, all are enter through this hilum part, right? Okay. Then on top of each kidney lies the suprarenal gland and endocrine suprarenal gland. It is endocrine gland, okay, that is functionally unrelated to the kidney. Okay, so suprarenal gland is a endocrine gland which is functionally unrelated to the kidney, right? So it has three layers of supportive tissue. One is the renal fascia, and the second is perirenal fat, and the third is fibrous capsule, right? So as you can see here, this is the inferior phrenic veins, right? This is the right kidney, this side is the right kidney, and this is the left kidney, right? And this structure is the vena cava. This is the inferior vena cava, right? And this is the left renal vein, and this part is the right testicular or ovarian vein, and this is the abdominal aorta, right? Then next you can see here, the outer layer is we have peritoneum, right? And this is the peripheral fat. Okay, this is the kidney, and here the in kidney the outer part, the fat known as peripheral fat, and the wall is known as peritoneum, right? So this is the renal fascia. Okay, just wait. And and this is the fibrous capsule, and this is the peripheral fat, right? Right. Then next, if I talk about, just wait a second. Here you can see the kidney is a fat holds the kidney in position. Okay, the fat holds the kidney in position if the amount of fat reduce. अगर फैट क्या होता है, अगर reduce हो जाता है, अगर कम हो जाता है, तो क्या होगा, weight loss होगा, right? The kidney drop and causes renal ptosis. Okay, so if the amount of fat is reduced, अगर कम हो जाता है तो क्या होगा, weight losses होगा, and the kidneys are also drop, right? So this cause the ureters to become kinked and urine unable to drain, right? Then the backup of urine due to the ptosis or any other obstruction lead to hydronephrosis. Okay, so it is called as hydronephrosis. Okay, so one is the backup of urine due to the ptosis or any other obstruction. If any other obstruction leads, okay, यानी कि urine feel any obstruction, okay, then it's become hydronephrosis, right? See, so as you can see here, this one is the renal pyramid. Okay, this is the renal pyramid. Okay, and this is the or we can call it about the medullary pyramid, right? And this is the papilla. Okay, this is the papilla. Next we have, this is the minor calyx, and this one is the major calyx, right? And this part is a renal column. Okay, and as we know, these are the calyx. Okay, these are the calyx, यानी कि major calyx and minor calyx, right? So here the space person, in this person, so the part of cortex present in medulla is the renal column of Botany. Okay, so here is the renal column of Botany. Okay, and the outer part we know that the cortex part. Okay, and this is the ureter. Okay, this is the ureter, and here is the renal pelvis is present, and then this is the renal vein, and this is the renal artery. Okay, and all the renal vein, artery, okay, and renal pelvis are enter one, that is of hilum. Okay, called as hilum, right? So here you can see, this is the basic structural functional unit is known as nephron. We know the structural and functional unit of kidney known as nephron. Okay, so nephron जो होता है, nephron, it is a renal corpuscles and renal tubule. Okay, so the nephron are the renal corpuscles and renal tubule, and the corpuscles, that means filtration. Okay, what is the meaning of corpuscle? That means it is the filter, it filtrate, right? And tubule that is reabsorption. Okay, in tubule में क्या होता है, reabsorb होता है, ठीक है? Then renal cortex is in renal cortex is in outer is 1 centimeter, that is called renal cortex. Okay, then renal medulla. What is renal medulla? It is a renal columns and pyramid shape. Okay, right, and forms the papilla. Right. Next we can talk about the lobe of kidney. Right. So the lobe of kidney is pyramid shape. Right. It is a pyramid shape. Okay, in a triangular type shape. Right, and it's overlying the cortex. Right. So this is all about the internal anatomy of the kidney. Right. Next, as you can see here, this part, the outer part is cortex and the inner part is we have the medulla. Okay, and here parenchyma tissue are present. Right, and here is a renal pelvis, renal vein, ureter. Okay, placed in one place. Okay, that is called as hilum, and this is the renal sinus. Okay, so as you can see here, the same part is the cortex and this part is known as the medulla. Okay, and the capsule is the capsule or the outer structure is known as the renal capsule. Okay, so this one is the minor calyx, and the space between them is the renal column. Okay, and this is the renal pyramid, the pyramid shape here you can see, and this is the ureter. Okay, and these are the renal pelvis and these are the renal papilla. Okay, so now, so as you can see, so one renal papilla, if I talk about the renal papilla, so in renal papilla you can see this part is renal cortex and this is the renal medulla, right, and the upper part is renal capsule. Okay, so in the renal papilla you can see this is the nephron, these part are the nephron. Okay, and in nephron this is the collecting duct. Okay, so in nephron these are the collecting duct, and in nephron we know this is the PCT yani ki proximal convoluted tubule, and this is the DCT yani ki distal convoluted tubule, and here the collecting duct. Right, so these are the collecting duct. Right, and this part is the minor calyx and this is the renal papilla. Right, so next you can see here the same thing, minor, this is the real image, this is the real image of frontal section. This is the minor calyx, this is the major calyx, renal pelvis, medulla, cortex, ureter, renal vein and renal artery. This is the real image of kidney. Right, next, so minor calyx, so जो minor calyx होता है cup over papilla, it collects the urine. Okay, so next if I talk about the blood supply diagram. Okay, so how to supply the blood. Right, so you can see here, so the path of blood through kidney, first is the renal artery, then it's interlobular artery. So so roughly I will say what is the path, okay, of blood flow in kidney. So first is the renal artery. So after renal artery it's go to the afferent arteriole. Okay, so after afferent arteriole it's go to the glomerulus. So glomerulus के बाद afferent artery, then efferent artery, then peritubular capillary, then vasa recta, and then renal venule, and then finally renal vein. So this is the passage of blood. Okay, so I will repeat again. First is the renal artery, the first path is the renal artery, and then afferent arteriole. After the afferent arteriole it goes to the glomerulus, then efferent arteriole, and then peritubular capillaries, then vasa recta, then renal venule, and then renal vein. Okay, so here you can see the renal artery is the interlobular artery of renal columns between the lobes. Okay, so then acute arterioles over pyramids, then interlobular arteries up to the cortex, then efferent arteriole, then glomerulus, then efferent arteriole, then peritubular capillaries, then interlobular veins, then acute veins, and then interlobular veins. Right, and then finally renal vein. Right, so these are the pathway of blood through kidney. Okay, so this is the pathway of blood through the kidney. Right, you can see here You can see here, these are the pathway. Just wait, see. So this is the acute artery and vein. Okay, this part is the medulla, and this is the cortex part, as we know. So thus here you can see these are the interlobular arteries and vein. These are the interlobular arteries and vein, and this side is the interlobular artery and vein, and this is a renal vein and artery, right? Next, you can see here the blood flow. Okay, this is the entry part, right? First is the afferent arteriole, right? Then capsular space, this one is the capsular space, then glomerular capsule or parietal layer, right? And then podocytes of a visceral layer, and this is the glomerulus part. Okay, and this is the PCT, and here in afferent arteriole यानी कि blood आना, और efferent arteriole यानी कि blood जाना है इसमें, ठीक है? और this is the outcome of blood flow. Okay, this is the entry point and this is the exit point, right? So here the passage of blood first enter through renal artery, right? And then efferent arteriole, and then glomerulus. After glomerulus, then efferent arteriole, and then is the peritubular capillary, then vasa recta, then renal vein, and finally comes out, right? So Bowman's capsule plus glomerulus, it's form the Malpighian body, right? It forms the Malpighian body और tube of capillaries उसको हम कहते हैं, ठीक है? So generally Bowman's capsule और glomerulus को साथ में हम क्या कहते हैं? Malpighian body, right? So you can see here the renal tubule is a proximal convoluted tube or PCT. It is the longest. Okay. So if I talk about the PCT, it is the longest and most coiled and simple cuboidal with broad bordered epithelium. Okay, the PCT. And next we can talk about the nephron loop. In nephron loop, it is U-shape. Okay, generally it is U-shape, and it is of descending and ascending limb. Okay, descending PCT and ascending PCT, right? It is thick segment. It is the thick segment, and it is simple cuboidal, right? And one is thin segment, यानी कि simple squamous, very water permeable, right? And the next is we have DCT. Okay, DCT are cuboidal. Okay, then juxtaglomerular apparatus, यानी कि DCT, afferent arteriole and efferent arteriole are present, right? Then you can talk about the collecting duct. It's several ducts, okay, join. It's several DCTs join to form the collecting duct. Okay, so it is a flow of glomerular filtrate, right? So this is the pathway of kidney. So this is the pathway of passage of urine in kidney, right? So what is the passage? So first is glomerulus capsule, and then PCT and proximal convoluted tube, then nephron loop, and then DCT, distal convoluted tube, then collecting duct, then papillary duct, and then minor calyx, then major calyx, then renal pelvis, then ureter, then urinary bladder, and finally urethra. So this is the passage of urine. Okay, I repeat again in a very simple way. So first is nephron. Okay, then after nephron it goes to the collecting duct, right? And then renal papillae. After renal papillae, it a duct of Bellini. Okay, and then minor calyx, and then major calyx, then renal pelvis, then ureter, then urinary bladder, and finally urethra. It upon the urine, right? So this is the pathway of urine, right? You can see here the juxtaglomerular apparatus. This is the diagram of juxtaglomerular apparatus. Okay, these are the podocytes. Okay, so this is the juxtaglomerular cell here present. Okay, we know this is the afferent arteriole, and here the smooth muscle cells are present, right? And this is the distal tubule. Okay, and this is afferent arteriole. Okay, next. So we study about that the urine storage and elimination. the uterus, okay, form the renal pelvis, passes dorsal to bladder and enters it from below, about 25 centimeter long, right? Okay, so it has three layer. First is adventitia, the second is muscularis. Muscularis in two layers of smooth muscle. That means urine enters, it stretches and contracts in peristaltic web, right? And then third layer is we have mucosal layer. It transitional epithelium. So we have three layer. One is the adventitia layer, second is the muscularis layer, and third is the mucosal layer, right? So lumen are very narrow and easily obstructed. We know that lumen are very narrow and easily obstructed, right? So these are the three layer, as you can see here: adventitia layer, and the muscularis layer, and the mucosal layer, right? So you can see here the urinary bladder and urethra in a female. In female, this is the female part, right? So as you can see, this is the ureter, okay, and this part is the urethral opening, right? This is the urethral, as you can see here, this is the urethral opening, this part, right? So this is the trigon. This one is the trigon, is the triangular shape here called as triangle. So this urethral opening here stores the urine, here store the urine, and here the muscle is present called as dartersal muscle, okay, and the outer here, this is the parietal peritoneum, right? And here two sphincters are present. One is the internal urethral sphincter and another is the external urethral sphincter. So one is internal and another is the external, right? So external हमारे कंट्रोल में होता है, but internal हमारे कंट्रोल में नहीं होता है. This is right. So and it is extreme, and this is external urethral orifice. This is the urethral orifice, right? So located in pelvic cavity, right, posterior to pubic symphysis, and it has also three layer. One is the parietal peritoneum, it is superiorly and fibrous adventitia rest, and second is muscularis layer, it is present of dartersal muscle, okay. Dartersal muscle is three layer of smooth muscle, it's covered in three layer of smooth muscle, and then mucosal layer is the transitional epithelium, right? And then if I talk about the trigon is the opening of ureters and urethra, and it is triangular, okay. The three layers are so these are the three layer and located in the pelvic cavity, right? Next is the rugae. So the rugae is the relaxed bladder. The rugae is the relaxed bladder. It is feel relaxed, wrinkled. This is the wrinkled shape and highly distensible, right? And the capacity is moderately full is 500 ml and maximum up to 800 ml, okay. So as you can see here, the female urethra, okay, so it is of 3 to 4 centimeter long. So the female urethra is a 3 to 4 centimeter long, and external urethral orifice, this is the external urethral orifice, okay. This part, this is the external urethral orifice, right? So it is between vaginal orifice and clitoris. It is situated between the vaginal orifice and clitoris, right? And internal urethral sphincter, okay. So in internal urethral sphincter, dartersal muscle thickened and smooth muscle and involuntary control. This is involuntary control. Internal urethral sphincter, these are the internal urethral sphincter, and it is involuntary, but in external it is voluntary muscle, right? So this is the internal, and this part is the external part, as you can see here, okay. So external urethral sphincter is the skeletal muscle and it has the voluntary control, right? Next we have male bladder and urethra. This is the male bladder, and you can see here that it is 18 centimeter long, right? And internal urethral sphincter is present here. These are the internal urethral sphincter, and this part is the external urethral sphincter, okay, as you can see here. Then it has also three region. This part is the prostatic urethra, during orgasm, okay, it receives the semen, okay, and the mid part is the membranous urethra. It passes through the pelvic cavity, okay. The second part we have the membranous urethra. So the membranous urethra is passes through the pelvic cavity, and this is the penile urethra, as you can see here, okay. So this is all about the male bladder and urethra. So here is complete your anatomy of the excretory part, okay. So thank you everyone. So I hope you like the video, and you must enjoy the video of this 3D animation and the diagram. So the diagram is very important for you. It build your knowledge and understanding, right? So thank you everyone.